Okay, so here we are in the Wiggle GitHub, and this is just going to be a very quick video to show how to install Wiggle for the very first time. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just git clone the code onto my system. It doesn't matter where you clone this to, as long as it's writable. Okay, now if you've already git cloned Wiggle before and you're having trouble, it might be worthwhile just running git pull to make sure everything is up to date. All right. So in this folder there's a bundle info XML which tells ChimeraX some of the dependencies and sets things up. The source code is in source, the license and the readme and so on. All right, we don't actually need to look at any of that. Clear. Now the next thing we need to do is install some dependencies into ChimeraX, and this is detailed here in the GitHub. All of these instructions are available in text if you prefer. The first thing I'm going to do is just check what version of CUDA I have before installing dependencies, because CuPy and the specific version of CuPy that you install must match your system version of CUDA. So let's just check on this system what version of CUDA I'm running. ls user local CUDA lib64. Okay, so it's pretty obvious here. All of these files end in 9.0, so I have CUDA 9.0. So it's important that that CUDA directory is on the system path. Now there's a couple of ways that you could accomplish this. I'm just going to export and set my LD library path environment variable to user local CUDA lib64. You could make an alias in your bash file so that this is done automatically when you open ChimeraX, or if you have modular environments, you could module load ChimeraX and have it set this LD library path automatically, and that would obviously depend on what version of CUDA you're also loading. But for me, I'm just going to set this. Now, because I don't have any aliases, I need to set this manually every time I open Chimera and Wiggle. So it's probably a good idea to set this in your bash folder, a bash file, or have modular environments set up correctly. Otherwise, it's a bit tedious. Okay, so clearly I have CUDA 9. Now I'm just going to copy the dependencies, this pip component of the command. We have to install these into the Python binary that's shipped with your version of ChimeraX. Okay, so on my system, ChimeraX is installed in user local programs, ChimeraX, and I have Python 3.8. Now if I just paste that pip component of the command, this is good to go, but remember on this system I have CUDA 9 and the default in the GitHub is CUDA 10.0. So I'm just going to change that to 9.0 and run that command. And that may take a little bit longer for you if you've never done this before. I already have these packages installed, so it says requirement is already satisfied. Just check that pip hasn't choked on any particular dependency and make sure that it's installed properly. Now we're ready to install Wiggle into ChimeraX. So let's launch ChimeraX. If you've already tried to install ChimeraX, or if you Wiggle into ChimeraX, or if you've had problems in the past, the first thing you can try and do is devil clean, and then just give it the path to where you've installed, or where you've saved the Wiggle source code. So that will just clear any old versions of Wiggle out of ChimeraX. If you've never done this before, you don't need to run that command at all. Okay, so now we're going to build the code home Charles install tutorial Wiggle. So that will build a Python wheel. and then we're going to install devel, install, and then the same path. Okay, so now if we go Tools, General, Wiggle, we can open the Wiggle UI and we can start processing data or looking at our data. Now, that's all you have to do, and hopefully this all works for you. But let's just say that you forgot to export your LD library path. What's going to happen? So let's LD library path. Okay, so we forgot to export our LD library path, and our CUDA libraries are not available on the system path. So CuPy won't be able to find the things it needs. So if we launch ChimeraX, and we've already installed Wiggle into this version of ChimeraX, so it's just an average day during the week, and we want to launch Wiggle. Everything goes according to plan, but when you start to run, say, volume rendering, CuPy will start to complain and you'll get an error. So don't don't spend many hours processing data only to find that you then have to close everything to properly export your system path. So it's a good idea to have this as defined as an alias or automatically loaded when you open the terminal.